The lecture hall buzzed with nervous energy as Professor Zithera adjusted the holographic display. Around the curved amphitheater, students from 12 different species shifted in their specialized seating arrangements. The Veltari curled their tentacles anxiously, while the crystalline Kaith clicked softly in their harmonic language. At the back, the massive Grox delegates rumbled in low, subsonic conversations. Dr. Sarah Chun sat in the standard humanoid section, her worn leather jacket draped over the back of her chair. She was the only human in the interspecies behavioral psychology course at Kepler Station University, and she'd grown accustomed to the stares. Most species had heard stories about humans, but few had actually encountered one in an academic setting. Today we will examine apex predator psychology, Professor Zithera announced, her insectoid mandibles clicking as she spoke. The Centaurian professor had spent decades studying the behavioral patterns of the galaxy's most dangerous species. We will analyze how different apex predators respond to territorial challenges and threat displays. A hologram materialized in the center of the hall, showing a sleek, six-legged creature with rows of razor teeth. Several students instinctively recoiled. The shadow stalker of Proxima 7. The professor continued. Listen to its hunting call. The speakers crackled to life, releasing a bone-chilling howl that seemed to resonate through every molecule in the room. The sound was primal, ancient, designed by evolution to freeze prey in terror. The Veltari student named Kefal wrapped his tentacles tighter around his body. That sound triggers every survival instinct I possess, he whispered to his neighbor, a lizard-like saurian. The hologram shifted, showing new creatures. First came the glass serpents of Europa Station, their crystalline bodies catching light as they emitted a sound like breaking crystal mixed with screaming wind. Then, the deep hunters from the ocean world of Nereid, whose calls were so low they could be felt more than heard, vibrating through water and bone alike. Each predator call was more terrifying than the last. The class grew quieter with each demonstration, students huddling closer to their own kind. Some of the more sensitive species had activated their natural defense mechanisms. The Kaith had dimmed their internal light, while the furry Brisien had fluffed up to twice their normal size. Now, Professor Zithera said, her compound eyes scanning the room, we come to perhaps the most fascinating case study. The apex predator of Earth, specifically, the extinct Tyrannosaurus rex. The hologram shimmered, revealing the massive prehistoric creature in all its terrible glory. Even as a projection, the T-Rex commanded respect. Its powerful jaws could crush bone. Its tiny arms belied a body built for devastating attacks. And its eyes held an intelligence that spoke of a perfect killing machine. Sarah looked up from her notes, mildly interested. She'd loved dinosaurs as a child, like most humans, but she was more focused on the behavioral analysis aspects of the lecture. The Tyrannosaurus possessed one of the most psychologically effective hunting calls in recorded galactic history, the professor explained. Even species that never evolved on Earth find this sound deeply disturbing. We believe it taps into some universal recognition of death itself. She activated the audio system. I must warn you all, this recording has been known to cause fainting, panic attacks, and temporary paralysis in some species. Please activate your personal shields if you feel uncomfortable. Around the room, students began powering up various defensive technologies, energy barriers, sonic dampeners, neural stabilizers. The precautions seemed almost excessive to Sarah, but she'd learned that different species had vastly different tolerance levels for stress stimuli. The speakers began to emit the sound, and Sarah understood why her classmates were afraid. The T-Rex roar was indeed impressive, a deep, primal bellow that spoke of unstoppable force and ancient hunger. It was the sound of something that had ruled its world for millions of years, a creature that knew no equal. But, to Sarah's ears, it was also familiar. She'd heard similar sounds in dozens of movies, nature documentaries, and museum exhibits. The roar was scary, sure, but it was also somehow nostalgic. It reminded her of childhood visits to natural history museums, of late-night monster movie marathons with her little brother. Without thinking, Sarah let out a small chuckle. The sound cut through the terrified silence of the lecture hall like a blade. Every head, tentacle, and optical sensor turned toward her. The The T-Rex roar was still playing, but now it seemed to compete with something far more unsettling to the other students. The sound of a creature that found their ultimate terror amusing. Professor Zithera's mandibles stopped clicking. The holographic T-Rex froze mid-roar. In the sudden quiet, Sarah realized she had made a mistake. Is something funny, Miss Chun? The professor asked, her voice carrying a mix of confusion and scientific curiosity. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. She looked around at the terrified faces of her classmates, some still cowering behind their defensive barriers, others staring at her with something approaching horror. She started, then cleared her throat. It's just that the sound reminded me of something from back home. We have these things called movies, and this roar has been used in them so many times that it's become kind of familiar, comforting even. The silence stretched longer. A Veltari student's tentacles began turning pale with shock. The massive Grox delegate in the corner made a sound like grinding stone. What Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a gasp. You find the call of history's most perfect predator comforting? Professor Zithera asked slowly. Well, when you put it like that, Sarah said, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. Look, I know it sounds weird, but humans grow up with these sounds. We put them in our entertainment. Children love dinosaurs. They're on lunch boxes and toys and children's toys, interrupted Kefal, his tentacles now completely white. You give your offspring replicas of apex predators for recreation? Sarah nodded, not seeing the problem. Of course, dinosaur toys are classics. Every human kid has played with plastic T-Rex figures. We make them roar and stomp around and fight other dinosaurs. It's fun. The word fun seemed to hit the classroom like a physical blow. Several students actually flinched. Professor Zithera's compound eyes glittered with intense interest. Miss Chun, would you mind if we explored this reaction further? Your response is unprecedented in my research. Sarah shrugged. Sure, I guess. What did you want to know? The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of excitement in Centaurians. Play the recording again. This time, I want you to describe exactly what you're feeling and thinking. The T-Rex roar filled the chamber once more, and Sarah listened thoughtfully. Around her, the other students maintained their defensive positions, watching her with a mixture of fear and fascination. It's powerful, Sarah said, speaking over the sound. Definitely impressive. You can hear the size of the creature, the strength in its lungs. But it's also, I don't know, kind of basic. Like, it's just saying, I'm big and scary, stay away. There's no real complexity to it. She paused, considering. Actually, you know what it reminds me most of? My neighbor's dog. He's this tiny chihuahua named Mr. Buttons, but he thinks he's a wolf. He makes this adorable little growl when the mailman comes. And it's the same energy, just scaled way up. The comparison between the galaxy's most feared predator call and a small domestic animal named Mr. Buttons was apparently too much for one of the Brecian students, who fainted and tumbled from his perch. As other students rushed to help their classmate, Professor Zithera made rapid notes on her datapad. Her research had just taken a fascinating turn, though she suspected she was only beginning to scratch the surface of human peculiarity. Sarah, meanwhile, was wondering if she should mention that her little brother had a T-Rex alarm clock that woke him up with this exact sound every morning. Somehow, she suspected that information might not help her case. The next day, Sarah arrived at the university to find herself at the center of an unprecedented scientific storm. News of the human who laughed at predator sounds had spread through the academic networks faster than a plasma leak. Her inbox was flooded with interview requests, research proposals, and formal invitations from behavioral science departments across the galaxy. Professor Zithera was waiting for her outside the psychology department, practically vibrating with excitement. Miss Chun, I've spent the entire night reviewing the recordings and consulting with colleagues. Your reaction has challenged fundamental assumptions about predator psychology across 12 different research institutions. I just thought it sounded like my neighbor's dog, Sarah said weakly, adjusting her backpack. She'd been hoping the whole incident would blow over. That's exactly what makes it so remarkable, the professor replied, her mandibles clicking rapidly. Every other sapient species in the galaxy shows the same basic fear response to apex predator calls. It's considered one of the universal constants of evolved intelligence. the recognition of and appropriate terror toward ultimate predators. You've just proven that assumption wrong. They walked through the corridors of the xenobiology wing, passing groups of students who whispered and pointed at Sarah. She felt like a museum exhibit. Dr. Vexhan from the Andromedan Institute wants to study your neural patterns. Professor Zithera continued enthusiastically. The Crystalline Collective has offered to provide funding for a comprehensive study of human predator response. And the Imperial Grok Science Council has formally requested that you participate in their Apex Predator Symposium next month. Sarah stopped walking. Wait, the Groks want to study me? Aren't they the ones who literally eat their enemies? Only during formal wars, Professor Zithera clarified helpfully. During peacetime, they're quite scholarly. Very interested in comparative psychology, actually. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted from the main lecture hall. They could hear shouting in multiple languages, including what sounded like the harmonic shrieking of agitated Kaith. Inside the hall, they found chaos. Dr. Kelvin Reese, a visiting professor from Earth's Oxford University, stood at the center of a circle of panicking alien students. He was holding what appeared to be a simple audio device. "It's just a nature documentary," he was saying patiently to a group of Veltari who had wrapped their tentacles completely around their bodies in defensive balls. "I thought you might enjoy some authentic Earth predator calls for comparison purposes." Professor Zithera's compound eyes widened. "Dr. Reese, what exactly did you play?" "Oh, nothing too dramatic," the elderly human professor replied, adjusting his glasses. "Just some wolf howls, a few lion roars, maybe a bit of bear growling. Standard wildlife recordings. Though I did include that marvelous clip of a hippo call I recorded during my sabbatical in Kenya." A Saurian student who had climbed halfway up the wall in terror called down. He played 17 different predator calls in succession, without warning. While smiling, Sarah looked around at the devastated classroom. Students were huddled in defensive positions. Some had activated emergency distress beacons, and at least 3 different species appeared to be in various stages of shock-induced paralysis. "Dr. Reese," she said carefully, "I think you might have caused some trauma here." The professor looked genuinely confused. "But these are just normal animal sounds. Children on Earth listen to these in educational programs. My grandson has a toy that makes lion noises. He adores it." The word children sent another wave of horror through the recovering students. A Kaith professor who had arrived to help with the crisis began flashing in rapid, distressed patterns. "You expose your young to predator calls for entertainment?" The Kaith managed to communicate through her light patterns. "And they enjoy it?" "Well, yes," Dr. Reese replied matter-of-factly. "It's educational. Children need to learn about nature and wildlife. We have entire television programs dedicated to it. Animal Planet, National Geographic, nature documentaries, they're quite popular." Professor Zithera was taking furious notes. "Dr. Reese, would you say this is typical human behavior? This casual exposure to apex predator vocalizations?" "Casual?" Dr. Reese chuckled. "My dear professor, it's unavoidable. Humans actively seek out these experiences. We visit zoos specifically to hear lions roar. We pay money to go on safari expeditions. Some humans even keep large predators as pets." The statement about predator pets caused a fresh wave of panic. A Brisian student made a sound like a deflating balloon and fainted again. Sarah decided to help translate. What Dr. Reese means is that some humans keep domesticated versions of predators, like house cats. They're descended from small predators, but they're harmless now. Harmless. Professor Zithera's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. "Miss Chun, I've reviewed the biological data on Earth felines. They are incredibly efficient killing machines, even the domesticated varieties. They possess retractable claws, enhanced reflexes, night vision, and hunting instincts that rank among the most refined in known space." "Yeah, but they're cute," Sarah said. "They purr when they're happy. They like to sleep in sunny spots and play with string." Dr. Reese nodded enthusiastically. "My neighbor Mrs. Patterson has 7 cats. Lovely creatures, though they do bring her dead birds as presents fairly regularly." The casual mention of domestic predators bringing corpses as gifts to humans was apparently the final straw for several students. A group of Veltari began making distressed whistling sounds, while the remaining Kaith flickered so rapidly they resembled a disco ball. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in a more controlled environment, Professor Zithera suggested diplomatically. As they helped evacuate the traumatized students, Sarah couldn't help but notice how her fellow humans seemed completely oblivious to the terror they were causing. Dr. Reese was cheerfully offering to share more recordings from his extensive wildlife collection, apparently unaware that he'd just accidentally committed what several species considered psychological warfare. The incident was already being uploaded to the Galactic Academic Network under the title Secondary Human Predator Response Confirmation. Earth species demonstrate consistent, anomalous reactions to apex predator stimuli. Sarah suspected this was just the beginning of a very long and complicated academic career. Outside the lecture hall, she could hear Dr. Reese explaining to a group of horrified professors about something called the Discovery Channel's Shark Week, where humans apparently spent an entire week voluntarily watching programs about oceanic apex predators for fun. The sound of 12 different species simultaneously expressing shock in their native languages created a cacophony that could probably be heard from orbit. Within a week, Kepler Station University had become the unofficial headquarters for what the galactic media was calling the Human Predator Paradox investigation. Representatives from major universities across 3-star systems had arrived, turning the quiet academic outpost into a bustling research hub. Sarah found herself in the unusual position of being both a student and a primary research subject. She sat in Conference Room 7, surrounded by some of the galaxy's most prominent behavioral psychologists, all trying to understand how humans could exist in such flagrant violation of basic evolutionary psychology. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Dr. Thelvar, a renowned Andromedan researcher whose blue crystalline form pulsed with analytical energy. "Humans not only tolerate predator vocalizations, but you actively incorporate them into your recreational activities?" "Well, yeah," Sarah replied, feeling like she was stating the obvious. Horror movies wouldn't be very scary without good sound effects. And nature documentaries would be pretty boring if they censored out all the animal noises. Dr. Thelvar's crystal structure flickered in confusion. "You use predator calls to enhance fear responses for entertainment purposes?" "Horror movies are supposed to be scary," Sarah explained. "That's the whole point. People watch them to get frightened in a safe environment. It's like emotional exercise." The concept of deliberately seeking fear for pleasure seemed to break something in the assembled researchers' minds. Several began rapid-fire conversations in their native languages, while others furiously updated their research notes. Professor Zithera leaned forward, her compound eyes reflecting the conference room lights. "Miss Chun, we've been analyzing human entertainment media that Dr. Reese provided. Can you explain the cultural phenomenon of something called Jurassic Park?" Sarah brightened. "Oh, those are great movies. Steven Spielberg classics. They're about this theme park where scientists bring dinosaurs back to life. But then, everything goes wrong, and the dinosaurs start hunting people. And humans enjoy watching this scenario?" "Absolutely. The first movie made over $1 billion worldwide. It's considered one of the greatest films ever made." Dr. Korvash, a massive Grox researcher, rumbled in his deep voice. "The humans create fictional scenarios where they are hunted by apex predators, and then consume this content for pleasure?" "The special effects were really groundbreaking for their time," Sarah said enthusiastically. "And the T-Rex scenes were incredible. Really showed off how powerful and terrifying they would have been. Plus, the velociraptors were genuinely scary, smart pack hunters with sickle claws." The room fell silent. Dr. Thelvar's crystal form pulsed rapidly. "Miss Chun, did you just describe pack-hunting predators as genuinely scary, while expressing positive emotional responses?" Sarah paused, realizing how that might sound to species that had evolved completely different threat responses. I mean, they were effective movie monsters. Well-designed antagonists. The way they problem-solved and worked together made them compelling villains. "Villains," Professor Zithera repeated slowly. "You classify apex predators as antagonists in narrative structures rather than existential threats to survival." "Well, in movies they are antagonists," Sarah said. "In real life, they're just animals doing what evolution designed them to do. But, in fiction, they make great bad guys because they're powerful, intelligent, and genuinely dangerous. Dr. Corvash made a sound like grinding mountains. Your species creates entertainment where you are prey, and you find this pleasurable. Sometimes we're the predators, too, Sarah added helpfully. There are lots of movies where humans hunt dangerous animals. Predator is actually about an alien hunter stalking human soldiers, but the humans fight back. Great action movie. The revelation that humans created entertainment about being hunted by alien predators caused Dr. Thelvar's crystal form to flash in patterns that probably indicated extreme confusion. Dr. Reese mentioned something called Shark Week. Professor Zithera said, consulting her notes. Could you explain this cultural phenomenon? Sarah grinned. Oh, that's a Discovery Channel tradition. Every summer they dedicate a whole week to programming about sharks. Documentaries about great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks, all the really impressive species. People love it. The ratings are huge. Humans voluntarily consume media content focused entirely on oceanic apex predators, Dr. Corvash stated. For recreation and education, Sarah added. Shark Week actually does a lot to promote shark conservation. When you see how amazing these animals are, you want to protect them. This statement caused several researchers to begin rapid consultations with their translation devices, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Dr. Thelvar's form pulsed brighter. Miss Chun, our preliminary research indicates that humans not only tolerate proximity to predators, but actively work to preserve them. Can you explain this behavior? Conservation is important, Sarah said. These species are incredible examples of evolutionary success. They've survived for millions of years, perfectly adapted to their environments. It would be a tragedy to lose them, but they pose a direct threat to human survival. Sarah shrugged. Not really. Shark attacks are incredibly rare. You're more likely to be struck by lightning than attacked by a shark. Most predators avoid humans anyway. We're not their natural prey. Yet humans seek out encounters with these creatures, Professor Zithera noted. Dr. Reese provided documentation of humans engaging in activities called shark diving and bear watching. Those are popular ecotourism activities, Sarah confirmed. People pay good money to see great whites or polar bears in their natural habitats. It's exciting. The word exciting in relation to proximity to apex predators seemed to cause some sort of collective system crash among the researchers. Several began speaking rapidly in their native languages, while others appeared to be running emergency psychological protocols. Dr. Corvash leaned forward, his massive bulk causing his chair to creak. Miss Chun, I must ask directly. Do humans have no functional fear response to predators? Sarah considered the question. We definitely have fear responses, but fear isn't necessarily negative for us. Fear can be exciting, educational, even fun. We've built entire industries around controlled fear experiences, haunted houses, roller coasters, extreme sports. Fear is just another emotion to be experienced and enjoyed. The silence that followed was so profound that Sarah could hear the station's life support systems humming in the background. She looked around at the assembled researchers, all staring at her with expressions ranging from fascination to horror. Is that not normal? She asked tentatively. Dr. Thelvar's crystal form flickered rapidly. Miss Chun, what you've just described represents the most significant deviation from universal survival psychology we've ever encountered. Your species doesn't just tolerate fear. You seek it out, cultivate it, and transform it into recreational activity. When you put it like that, it does sound kind of weird, Sarah admitted. Professor Zithera's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was intense excitement. This explains everything. Humans don't respond to predator calls with fear because you've evolved beyond basic predator-prey relationships. You've become something else entirely. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Dr. Corvash answered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the conference table. You've become the apex species that other apex predators should fear. The statement hung in the air like a revelation, and Sarah realized that her casual attitude toward dinosaur roars and shark documentaries might be revealing something much more significant about humanity than she had ever imagined. The revelation about humans being potential superpredators sent shockwaves through the galactic research community, but it also attracted attention from less academic quarters. 3 days after Dr. Corvash's declaration, The first military representatives arrived at Kepler Station. Sarah was reviewing her xenopsychology homework when her door chimed. She opened it to find an imposing figure in the black and silver uniform of the Galactic Defense Coalition, flanked by two equally serious-looking officers from species she didn't recognize. Miss Chun, the lead officer said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into formal standard. I am Commander Zixtal of the Coalition Intelligence Division. We need to discuss your planet's threat assessment status. Sarah blinked. My what now? May we come in? This is a matter of galactic security. Feeling like she'd somehow stumbled into a spy thriller, Sarah let them into her small dormitory room. The officers looked around with professional interest, as if cataloging potential weapons among her textbooks and instant noodle supplies. Commander Zixtal consulted a data pad. Miss Chun, based on recent findings regarding human psychological profiles, the Coalition has initiated a comprehensive review of Earth's classification in our threat database. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. You're dealing with college students and professors, Sarah said slowly. We're academics, not soldiers. Are you? Commander Zixtal's translator couldn't quite convey the skepticism in his voice, but Sarah caught it anyway. Miss Chun, let me share some disturbing intelligence we've gathered about your species. He activated a holographic display. Item 1. Humans deliberately expose themselves to predator vocalizations for entertainment purposes. Item 2. Human juveniles are provided with replica predators as toys. Item 3. Humans actively seek proximity to dangerous predators through activities classified as recreation. Each point appeared in the hologram with supporting evidence: movie posters, toy catalogs, and tourism advertisements featuring activities that made the alien officers visibly uncomfortable. Item 4. The commander continued. Humans have developed advanced simulation technologies specifically to create more realistic predator encounter experiences. These video games allow humans to practice hunting and being hunted in increasingly sophisticated scenarios. The hologram showed screenshots from popular video games, monster hunting simulators, survival horror games, and wildlife documentaries rendered in interactive form. Sarah raised her hand tentatively. Commander, I think there might be a misunderstanding here. Those are just games and movies. Entertainment. They don't mean anything sinister. Don't they? Commander Zixtal's compound eyes fixed on her. Miss Chun, we've analyzed human historical records. Your species has a documented pattern of hunting every apex predator on your planet to extinction or near extinction. Humans are the only known species to systematically eliminate their natural predators and then recreate them artificially for entertainment purposes. The weight of that statement hit Sarah like a physical blow. She'd never thought about human history in those terms before. Furthermore, the commander continued, humans demonstrate no natural fear response to predator vocalizations because you've eliminated the evolutionary pressure that creates that response. You've become so successful at predation that apex predator calls represent nostalgia rather than threats. One of the other officers, a reptilian species Sarah didn't recognize, spoke up. Our psychological analysis indicates that human entertainment represents training simulations for predatory behavior. Your species maintains hunting readiness through fictional scenarios. That's not. Sarah started, then stopped. Was it? She thought about the popularity of survival shows, hunting documentaries, and action movies where humans overcame impossible odds against dangerous creatures. Commander Zixtal leaned forward. Miss Chun, we need to know, what is Earth's military capacity? What weapons technologies have you developed? How many humans are trained in combat? I'm not a military expert, Sarah said carefully. I'm a psychology student. Yet you casually mention that human children play with predator replicas, and find apex predator sounds nostalgic. This suggests a species that has completely transcended normal predator-prey relationships. In military terms, that makes humans potentially the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She was beginning to understand how her innocent reactions in class had triggered such an extreme response. Commander, she said slowly, I think you're overestimating us. Humans aren't some kind of galactic super predators. We're just, well, we're pretty good at adapting and surviving, but so are lots of species. Miss Chun, No other species in our database actively hunts apex predators for recreation. No other species converts predator vocalizations into entertainment media. No other species has driven multiple predator species to extinction and then created artificial versions for amusement. The commander activated another holographic display. We've been monitoring human digital communications since this investigation began. Do you know what the most popular search terms are in relation to predators? Sarah shook her head, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. How to survive, hunting techniques, predator weaknesses, and best weapons for dangerous animals. Your species actively researches how to defeat every predator you encounter. That's just preparedness, Sarah said weakly. And most of those are probably for video games or movies. Or training, the reptilian officer suggested ominously. Commander Zixtao closed the holographic display. Miss Chen, we're not here to arrest you or declare war on Earth. But we need to understand what we're dealing with. The Coalition has protocols for interacting with different threat levels, and humans appear to have broken our classification system entirely. He stood up, and the other officers followed suit. We'll be conducting additional interviews with human personnel on this station. We need to determine whether Earth represents a potential threat to galactic stability. After they left, Sarah sat in her dormitory room, staring at the wall and trying to process what had just happened. Her innocent laughter at a T-Rex roar had apparently convinced the galactic military that humans might be some kind of ultimate predator species. She picked up her communication device and sent a message to her little brother back on Earth. Hey Tommy, you know that T-Rex alarm clock of yours? Maybe don't mention it to any aliens. Ever. As she prepared for bed, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's relationship with the galaxy was about to become much more complicated. Outside her window, she could see additional Coalition ships arriving at Kepler Station, their running lights blinking like predatory eyes in the darkness. For the first time since arriving at the university, Sarah found herself genuinely afraid. Not of alien predator calls or movie monsters, but of the possibility that her species might be exactly what the Coalition thought they were, and what that might mean for Earth's future in the galactic community. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was held in the Grand Amphitheater of Kepler Station, hastily converted from its usual academic conferences to accommodate representatives from 47 different species. Sarah sat in the witness section, flanked by Dr. Reese and 3 other humans who had been brought in as human behavior consultants. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Species that had coexisted peacefully for centuries were now eyeing the human delegation with mixtures of fascination, fear, and suspicion. Chancellor Vorthay K., the ancient and respected Etherian who presided over council sessions, called for order with a harmonic chime that resonated through the chamber's crystalline walls. We are gathered to address the unprecedented findings regarding the human species and their implications for galactic stability, the Chancellor announced. The evidence presented by the Coalition Intelligence Division has raised serious questions about humanity's classification and our ongoing diplomatic relationships. Commander Zixtao rose from the military section. Honorable Council members, our investigation has revealed that humans represent a category of sapient life previously thought impossible, a species that has achieved complete dominance over their planetary ecosystem while maintaining the psychological profiles of active predators. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Sarah noticed several species had activated defensive postures, while others leaned forward with scientific interest. The evidence is undeniable, the commander continued. Humans seek out fear experiences, consume predator-related entertainment, and demonstrate no natural fear response to apex predator stimuli. They have systematically eliminated or subjugated every dangerous species on their planet while maintaining cultural practices that celebrate predatory behavior. Ambassador Kelthera of the Veltari Consortium rose gracefully, her tentacles weaving complex patterns of distress. Commander, are you suggesting that humans pose a direct threat to other sapient species? I am suggesting that we have no framework for understanding what humans might be capable of, Commander Zixtao replied. Their behavior patterns are completely outside our established parameters for safe sapient species interaction. Sarah felt compelled to speak up. Honorable Council, may I address these concerns? Chancellor Vorthake's ethereal form shimmered. Miss Chun, you have been granted witness status. Please, share your perspective. Sarah stood, acutely aware that hundreds of alien eyes were focused on her. Respected representatives, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. Yes, we've adapted to eliminate threats from predators, but that doesn't make us dangerous to other sapient species. Dr. Thelvar activated his crystalline communication array. Miss Chun, how do you explain humanity's unique psychological profile? No other species demonstrates such aberrant responses to predator stimuli. Because no other species evolved the way we did, Sarah replied. Humans developed intelligence while remaining physically vulnerable. We couldn't compete with predators through strength or natural weapons, so we had to outsmart them. Our aberrant psychology is just the result of intelligence developing in a persistently dangerous environment. She gestured to the assembled council. Most of your species either evolved as apex predators yourselves or developed intelligence after achieving safety from predation. Humans had to be clever prey animals first, then gradually became the predators. That's why we find fear experiences manageable. We've been dealing with existential threats for millions of years. Professor Zithera rose from the academic section. Miss Chin makes a fascinating point. Perhaps humans represent a unique evolutionary pathway, intelligence emerging from prey species rather than predator species. Dr. Korvash rumbled his agreement. It would explain their unusual relationship with danger. Humans haven't transcended fear. They've learned to function effectively while afraid. Ambassador Kelthera's tentacles shifted to patterns of curiosity. But what about their elimination of Earth's predators? This suggests aggressive expansion behavior. Dr. Reese cleared his throat and stood. If I may address that point, Ambassador. Humans didn't eliminate predators out of aggression. We did it out of necessity. Our populations grew, we needed more space, and large predators were incompatible with human settlements. It was survival, not conquest. And now we're trying to bring them back, Sarah added. Conservation programs, protected habitats, reintroduction efforts. We realized that eliminating our predators was a mistake. A healthy ecosystem needs its apex species. Commander Zixdal's stance remained skeptical. Yet humans continue to create predator simulation environments. Your entertainment industries focus extensively on scenarios involving dangerous creatures. Because we miss them, Sarah said simply. The statement caused a ripple of confusion through the chamber. Humans evolved alongside dangerous predators for millions of years. They shaped our psychology, our culture, our entire worldview. When we eliminated them, we lost something essential about ourselves. She gestured to the holographic displays still showing human entertainment media. Those movies, games, and documentaries aren't training simulations, they're cultural mourning. We're trying to reconnect with a relationship that defined us as a species. We create fictional predators because we destroyed the real ones, and we regret it. The chamber fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. Chancellor Vorthake's form pulsed with contemplative energy. You are suggesting, the Chancellor said slowly, that human predator-related behavior represents nostalgia rather than aggression? Exactly, Sarah replied. We laugh at dinosaur roars because they remind us of movies from childhood, not because we're planning to hunt something. We watch shark documentaries because we're fascinated by creatures we'll probably never see in the wild. We've become the apex predators of our planet, but part of us mourns what we had to destroy to get there. Dr. Thelvar's crystal form flickered rapidly. This would explain the contradiction we've observed. Humans demonstrate predatory success while maintaining emotional attachment to their former predators. Ambassador Kelthera's tentacles wove patterns of understanding. A species that achieved dominance, but retained empathy for their former threats. This is unprecedented. Commander Zixtal lowered his datapad. If this interpretation is correct, then humans represent opportunity rather than threat. A species that has successfully managed the transition from prey to predator while maintaining ethical restraint. Chancellor Vorthake rose, their ethereal form casting gentle light throughout the chamber. It appears we have encountered something remarkable, a species that has faced the ultimate evolutionary challenge and emerged not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Chancellor's pronouncement carried the weight of official council recognition. Humans will be classified as a unique evolutionary success, a species that has achieved apex status while maintaining protective instincts toward their former ecosystem. Earth will be welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Council, with special recognition for their conservation expertise. The chamber erupted in harmonic chimes, clicks, whistles, and other sounds of approval from dozens of species. Sarah felt tears of relief streaming down her face as the tension that had gripped the station for days finally broke. As the session concluded and representatives began mingling, Sarah found herself surrounded by alien scientists eager to learn more about human conservation efforts and ecosystem management. Dr. Reese was already deep in conversation with a group of Grox researchers about human wildlife preservation techniques. Professor Zithera approached with her characteristic rapid mandible clicking. "Miss Chun, I believe your innocent laughter in my classroom has changed the course of galactic history. Your species has much to teach us about the relationship between intelligence and environmental stewardship." Sarah smiled, finally, understanding the larger significance of the events she had inadvertently set in motion. "Professor, I think humans have a lot to learn from the galaxy as well. Maybe together we can figure out how to be better guardians of the universe we all share." Outside the great windows of Kepler Station, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if welcoming Earth's children to their rightful place among the cosmic community, not as conquerors, but as the species that had learned to love what they once feared, and to protect what they had the power to destroy. Later that evening, Sarah sent another message to her little brother. "Hey Tommy, you can keep your T-Rex alarm clock after all. Turns out the galaxy thinks it's pretty cool too."